Hi, Cinematic Enthus here and talking to you today. It's December 20th, 2024, and today's kind of a mixture of several things. It's a holiday edition, so I'll be talking about Christmas movies and a little bit of music too. And also, I'm going to go over some of the October, November movies I watched and with the goal of providing you guys with links so that you can watch them too. So I'm just kind of giving you my recommendations and also with the Christmas movies and or I should say holiday movies and also holiday music. I'll go ahead and timestamp this in the notes. So if you're just interested in the holiday stuff, you can go straight to the holiday section, which will be later on in the video. But first, I'm going to start out with the October, November, because I did do a theme. If you follow me on Instagram, or I'm also on Blue Sky and Mastodon, and obviously on YouTube. That's where I make the videos here when I have the chance to make them. And so if you want to like and subscribe to my channel, that would be fabulous if you like this sort of thing. Just to reintroduce myself, I'm Cinematic Enthus, and I do center most of my videos around screwball comedy from the 30s and 40s, also musicals from the golden era of Hollywood, but I also do a lot of stuff on like 60s, 70s, 80s comedies, um, certainly a lot of 90s stuff in there too, and also, even as far recent as 2000s and stuff like that. So I'm not really, it's more of a sensibility and an aesthetic. I tend to like things that are comedic in nature. So if that's your cup of tea, or musical, um, it's certainly not, I don't like all comedies and musicals, but that's kind of the general genre. However, with this video, we will be talking a little bit about Hitchcock. So I do enjoy the films of Hitchcock, and yeah, so we'll talk about that too. And I'll tell you why. But like I said, if you're interested in the holiday stuff, which also I'll be talking about my own personal playlists that I've put together for everybody to listen to if they want some Christmas music, I should say holiday music, sorry. Um, and also movies. So if you want to skip to that, just look at the timestamp and you'll be able to go to that directly. But if you'd like to hear about October, November, that was something where I posted on Instagram and Mastodon and Blue Sky as well, where I said I was going to be putting together some October, November for me, movie watching wise and even TV watching wise, is like a mixture of like the screwball comedy murder mysteries that were so hugely popular in the 1930s and 40s, and even up as recently as the 80s. But so I tend to do those like in the 30s and 40s. I try to get a lot of those in if I can, and then if I want to, I usually try to like watch maybe some thrillers if I can put some in, and I did try to do that with so let me just tell you right off the bat, in case you're wanting to refer to where I'm at and follow along with me, and I may try and post this in the video, I always have on my link tree, if you go to www.linktr.ee/Cinematic Enthus, CINEMATIC ENTHUS. So that's my Linktree address, and that's got like a whole bunch of stuff. It's got all the links, to find me on YouTube and Instagram and Blue Sky and Mastodon might not be on there actually. I have to add those, but but Instagram for sure, and YouTube are on there. And also, more importantly, it has current links where I've got a whole movie links doc that has everything that I've been watching with free links for you to watch as well. Obviously, that's one of the things I enjoy doing on this channel, is finding stuff for people to watch. So if you're looking for something and you like some of the things that I'm talking about, or videos I've talked about in the past, they're all on this one Google Doc. And then for Christmas, for holidays, I did a separate holiday doc, which I'll get to later. But anyway, getting back to the 2024 movie links doc, which you'll see if you go to that Linktree address, um, and it'll tell you at the top. I'll just show you right now because I'm on it right now. Okay, so basically the movies correspond to the date of the video. Like today's date is December, or it's like the month, you know. So like I told you, I was talking about October, November movies. So to find a specific film, or you can click to the page at the bottom of the document, which will just take you all the way to the bottom of the Google Doc because it's really long. So like it'll be basically December 2024 movies, and then if you page up just a little bit, it says October and November 2024. So that's where I'm at right now if you want to page with me. So I'm not going to go over every single movie I watched because there's just a ton of them, and a lot of them were kind of dud-ish, if you don't mind. So I'll try to just maybe I'll try and tell you the ones that I really enjoyed, and if there was one or two that are duds that I feel like I need to talk about, I'll do that. Mrs. Polifac's Spy was a huge disappointment. I love Rosalind Russell. If you've heard any of the videos I've done, I adore her, especially in the 30s and 40s. I'm not so much into her nun phase and her 50s and 60s stuff. Some of them are okay. But I kind of thought this one, even though it was from 71, it started out really well, and then it just kind of took a dive south. Not because of her, but because of the film. It's okay. For how there's certain people you have standards, like you expect more from certain people. I kind of expected more from her, and she did fine. It was just the film. So just, realize it's not going to be, the greatest film on earth, but it was okay. It was okay. And it's on YouTube. The Burbs, I love. These were October movies. So The Burbs, I kind of try to watch around Halloween because it's a funny Tom Hanks. And the review I wrote on Letterboxd was one sentence. It said, "Come for Tom Hanks and Carrie Fisher, stay for Bruce Dern." And that is so true. Bruce Dern in this movie is like, I think it's my favorite movie that he was ever in. His performance as the Vietnam vet is so freaking funny. You should just totally watch it just for that. That is on, I call it .ru. These .ru links are kind of dependent on your computer or mobile device being amenable to them. So they're okay to use. Let me just preface this because I want you to be safe computer-wise. The .ru links are perfectly fine. Just don't sign in and make an account because you don't need one. It'll tell you like sign in, make an account. No, you don't need it. Just click on the link and it brings up maybe a small screen, and then just hit the, like to expand the screen. It's usually like a little box in the corner. Just expand the screen like you would a YouTube or anything else, and just watch it from there. Don't sign in and make a free account. It's not worth it. Okay, because I do quite a bit of .ru is always a last resort. Most of my links either come from Amazon, they either come from Internet Archive, YouTube, or I'll occasionally put down like, okay, this is free on Pluto TV with ads. It's free on the Tubi app with the occasional ad, or it's free on, certain other places. I will occasionally put down if it's Amazon Prime or something, if it's a special movie that, I really love and I can't find it anywhere for free, but I'll always try and find you a free link if I can. Okay, so Burbs was great. Love it. Gosford Park, this is a favorite also of one of our listeners, and I was glad that she liked it as well. Gosford Park is so worth watching if you haven't watched it in a while, from 2001, especially in light of Dame Maggie Smith passing on this year. I wanted to watch it for her because I never really got into the whole Downton Abbey thing, because I feel like this movie came out before Downton Abbey ever came out, and I feel like it kind of, epitomizes that character that she played, I think, in Downton Abbey. So if you're a Downton Abbey fan, you should, if you haven't seen Gosford Park, you should totally see it. It's very much a murder mystery, and it's got a really funny cast, but it's also a Robert Altman film. So it's got a kind of like, I hate to put this in the same venue as another director, but there is a little bit of a Woody Allen thing going on in this Robert Altman film where there's a lot of conversations going on at the same time, and he kind of circles the camera around to various spots. And so you do kind of feel like you're walking through the living room and the dining room and the different like downstairs and all this. You feel like you're a part of the cast as well. So if you can kind of get used to that, it's a really, and of course the acting. I can just name like Clive Owen, one of his best films ever, in my opinion. Um, Bob Balaban is hilarious in it. He plays the Hollywood director. Jeremy Northam is fabulous as Ivor Novello. I had never even heard of Ivor Novello until this movie came out. So that was a real historical, that was a real guy. And it was nice to find out about a real person in a movie, inspired by the movie. So, and there's a lot of other people you'll recognize, like Michael Gambon. You guys will recognize him from the Harry Potter movies. But this was even made before the Harry Potter movie. Derek Jacobi, the fabulous Shakespearean actor and actor of many other films, British films. Richard E. Grant, fabulous. Really, you should just watch Richard E. Grant's little eye rolls and like this. I mean, you should just watch any scene he's in. Watch his face because it's worth the movie alone. But there's so many great performances. I'm probably missing a bunch of people I love. Yeah, you should totally watch it. Okay, and so that was kind of like a murder mystery, thing. Private Eyes. I really wanted to watch this because I hadn't seen it since I was a kid. 1980 is when it came out, and it held up. Tim Conway and Don Knotts. Lots of really funny one-liners, and also it was filmed in the Biltmore Hotel, which I've never been to, but it's in the in the western side of North Carolina. It's a very famous tourist attraction. So if you've never been to the Biltmore Hotel and you've always wanted to go, or actually, more importantly, it's these state grounds that are beautiful. The hotel is okay, and it's an old Gothic mansion, which is cool. But to me, the part that was really cool was seeing the grounds as well. But it's a fun movie. It's Don Knotts and Tim Conway, so you're gonna get that style of comedy. So if you like that, you should totally watch it. Every year I try to watch Clue. At the time of watching this in October, it was free on the Pluto TV app, but it's also free on Amazon Prime if you have that service. I also enjoyed, and of course I love that film. I watch it every year. Enough said. Without a Clue, 1988, I hadn't seen that in years, and it was really good. There was a really good rapport between Ben Kingsley and Michael Caine, and it's free on YouTube. It's a nice kind of like alternate take on the the Sherlock Holmes story, and an interesting. I don't know. I'm not a real buff on Sherlock Holmes, so I don't know how much of this is true, but like it kind of made it look like Holmes was the brains behind, I mean, not Holmes, Watson. It made it look like Watson was the brains behind Sherlock Holmes. Like everything that Sherlock Holmes discovered was because of Watson. So here's where we split the films into what I call the golden era, 1930s to 19. Some people say the 60s. I just make it easier on myself and just cut it off at 1970. I know that's a bit late for some people, but 1930 to 1970 films. I'll try to group those all together because they tend to be more of the classic era. So these were ones that I watched in October, in the vein of like murder mystery or something maybe along those lines. So Torchy Blane in Chinatown, okay. Might have to come back to that series later. Arsenic and Old Lace, I try to watch that either every other year or every year. That is a must have, a must watch for Cary Grant fans, for screwball comedy fans, for um, Peter Lorre fans. Um, you must see Peter Lorre in a comedy to truly appreciate. I know how great a dramatic actor he was, but I don't think people realize how great a comedy actor he was. It's very subtle. It's not like in your face, but it's very funny. And maybe it's because I don't like Raymond Massey. I've never liked the guy. I've only seen him in like 2 movies, and maybe it's because of the other movie. I didn't like him in that movie either because of his character. You know, there's some characters where you can look past how awful they are in terms of their characters, but there's other characters where it's just really hard to look past the actor, the character for the actor. And I've just always had trouble with Raymond Massey. And he just kind of annoys me in this movie. But his sidekick is Peter Lorre, and Peter Lorre is wonderful. And of course, the rest of the cast is just fabulous. Josephine Hull, and I think her name is Geraldine. It's not Geraldine Page. I'm sorry, I'm getting the name wrong. Josephine Hull and Gina Dare, that's her name, Gina Dare. They originated the Arsenic and Old Lace play in the late 30s, early 40s on Broadway. So that's one of those times where the 2 older women that run the house, they actually played in the film too. And they hold it together. It's pretty solid. And Edward Everett Horton, for you fans, he's there doing his usual fabulousness. And of course, Cary Grant doing a lot of. Cary Grant said that, and I think I wrote a review on this in Letterboxd. So if you want to check out my review there, you can. But he said that in one of his biographies, or somebody wrote this about him, he said he didn't really like his performance in Arsenic and Old Lace because he thought it was too over the top. And I just feel like, for a movie like that, I'm kind of glad he went over the top because everyone else in the cast is so deadpan and kind of low energy on purpose, because it's almost like these crazy things are happening and everyone else is like, yeah, whatever. So whatever, somebody died. Oh, well, so you have to have somebody kind of going, what? What do you mean somebody died? You have to have kind of a mixture of light and dark, to make it kind of interesting, because if you have everybody doing the same thing or a similar tone, it just, I don't know, doesn't really work as well. So I'm glad he went over the top. And there's a lot of physical comedy in it too, so that's cool. I said I was just going to gloss over these, but I'm not doing that so far. Because some of them are really good. Murder at the Vanities, I enjoyed that. I gave you a Vimeo link, which is totally, free and safe to watch. I think I remember enjoying that. It's a pre-code, and I do remember there being, I think it's a musical too. I want to say, I can't remember his name because I don't really watch him a whole lot. But he was in the Great Broadcast of 1940, and if I can remember his name, it'll come to me. I think his first name is Jack something. Anyway, it doesn't matter. He kind of was like the lead character, and if you like a backstage musical that's got a murder in it, you should watch it. The Lady Vanishes. This was so good. 1938. I was on a mission this fall to watch the Hitchcock movies from the 30s and early 40s that I haven't seen. And this is one of them, The Lady Vanishes. It's free on YouTube. It's also on the Tubi app. But the YouTube link I gave you is a slightly better cut, better remaster. This is a really important film to watch right now. It's lighthearted for Hitchcock. Um, so it's not like you're going to be watching. Don't expect like the tone of, let's say, Rope or something like that. It's got his cheeky sense of humor in it, but it's also got a. I'm trying not to give away the plot. It's also got some really lovable characters in it. Um, you have a couple that's kind of I would imagine, the equivalent to a gay couple. They're kind of worried about the sports scores in their home country. Then you have, this young lady who's going to get married soon. And then you have all these various different passengers. This older lady who's the main I think the main character. And she's a music teacher. And then you have the Michael Redgrave part, which is I think he's like a folk historian of some sort, but he also plays the clarinet. So you have all these people trying to, get out of this. I guess it's supposed to be Sweden or some alpine village. They're trying to get out of this snowed-in village to get back to their destination that they're going to, and they have to end up taking a train, and that's where most of the action happens. So, and then once you get on the train, it will be very much like you'll see if you've seen a lot of other train movies, like your Murder at the Orient Express, or that's even North by Northwest, or any of these train movies. You'll see kind of like this is a very early example of a murder on a train kind of storyline. So you'll see a lot of the things that you associate with those later movies probably derive from this movie, I would think. And I'm sure there's an earlier movie that came before this one that was probably an inspiration for Hitchcock. But and I'm just not thinking of it right now. But this one is really important to watch, and it's so entertaining. So, yeah. Murder Most Foul, 1964, with the beloved why am I forgetting everybody's names? You know who I'm talking about. Margaret. You'll remember. I keep thinking Margaret Hamilton. It's not Margaret Hamilton. It'll come back to me. She plays Jane Marple. And, yeah, it's really great. I think this one is I want to say it's in a boarding house or something. But I remember the boarding house in particular, once you get to the boarding house scenes, those are really good scenes. Very suspenseful. And she's just a delight. I'm sorry I can't remember her name. I usually remember names really quickly. My apologies. Miss Pinkerton, not really a comedy. They kind of ripped me off on this one. It's a Joan Blondell film that I thought was going to be a murder mystery comedy. And that's what it's classified as, but it wasn't. So it's okay. It's okay just for Joan Blondell. She's wonderful. Fuller Brush Girl, could not finish it. Horrible movie. 1950. Lucille Ball, couldn't finish it. Slight Case of Murder, that was, I believe, Edward G. Robinson. And you know what? I put that down here, but I don't think I got around to watching it, so I'll have to come back to that one. The Corpse Came COD. Now, this one is a comedy. It's a George Brent and Joan Blondell, kind of in the manner of Everybody Went Crazy after Nick and Nora Charles movies came out with, William Powell and Myrna Loy. The Thin Man movies, I think the first one was, 1934? Something like that. And, of course, there's several Thin Man movies, which, I meant to get to this year. Maybe I'll get to them. I've seen I've seen several of them, actually, but I haven't seen all of them. But anyway, you'll always have a lot of Thin Man. They're not clones, but they're people that they tried to pair together in the same kind of, I guess, template. And usually it turns out pretty well depending on the chemistry between the actors or how talented the actors are. And in this case, I'd say The Corpse Came COD. George Brent and Joan Blondell, since they had worked together, ironically, in Miss Pinkerton, the movie that I would. It's okay. I mean, watch it if you like those actors and you don't mind the fact that it's not a comedy. It is a murder mystery though, and it's entertaining, but it was just okay. I definitely preferred the Corpse Came COD. It's got a little bit more of a screwball um, murder mystery, female male kind of like thing going on. Grand Central Murder was kind of like similar to this kind of like idea of being in a train station or a bunch of different suspects, and it was a little more on the noir side. And the acting wasn't quite as good as I expected it to be. Um, so yeah, if you like more of the noirish, don't mind the fact that it's not really a comedy, go for that. Dial M for Murder is a favorite, and so that's free on the Tubi app as of the date of this video. And I also found another link for it if you'd like. Um, I can't believe how amazing Hitchcock is in that, especially as a cameraman, and I think this is with Robert, is it Burks, as a cinematographer, to be able to film almost an entire movie in one room and to make it interesting and to have all these wonderful camera angles, like shots from the ceiling looking down at the people in the room, shots from the side, shots, I mean, just all sorts of, it's just amazing. Like, how does somebody make a legendary film set in one room for like almost 2 hours? I mean, it's just stunning. And I never even, when I was a kid, when I first watched this movie, when I was probably I was like maybe 15 or something like that. I didn't even notice it was in one room. I just watched the movie and I liked it a lot because I liked Ray Milland at the time, and I still do, still like Ray Milland. Don't get me started about Grace Kelly. I don't really like Grace Kelly. You probably heard me talk about. There's a couple actors here and there that you'll hear me complain and, pardon my French, bitch and moan about because I think they're totally overrated. They're not untalented. I just don't think they're as talented as everyone thinks they are. Anyway, long story short, even she can't screw up this film. And in fact, I think this is actually one of her. It's not her best performance. I think I prefer her in Rear Window, actually. So, yeah, actually, no. I think I prefer her in Rear Window. She actually does annoy me a little bit in this movie. So, but Ray Milland is so fabulous, and some of the other side characters are great. And of course, I told you about Hitchcock. So yeah, you must watch that. Even if you've seen it before, watch it again. The Wrong Box was interesting. It was 1966. The reason to watch this movie, and I might have done a review in Letterboxd on it. This is kind of a black comedy, dark comedy. If you've ever seen, gosh, I can't remember it. It's a British movie with Alec Guinness from, I think, the 1950s. It's an Ealing comedy that made him famous. I can't remember the name of it. But it's where a bunch of people die in it, and they're all relatives of this main character. And it sounds horrible, but it's actually kind of funny. That's the essence of the black comedy part. Like, basically, somebody's going to inherit something, and people are trying to off each other, and it's that sort of thing. And it's devious and horrible when you think about it. But the reason to watch this movie is you get to see Dudley Moore and Peter Cook, the great British comedy duo, in their prime in 1966. Michael Caine's, he's fine, and, he's kind of a young character in this, and it's an unusual character for Michael Caine to play because, as he grew older, he kind of played more conflicting and anti-hero characters. This is more of kind of like an innocent character that he plays. So it's kind of cool to see him as such an innocent character. Those were the three people that really stood out the most to me. If you're looking for Peter Sellers, he's only in it for like 5 minutes. But he's obviously memorable. He's just not in it for very long. So other mystery comedy films from the classic era, and I'll try to go quicker over these, but Danger on the Air, I would totally watch this one. Do you like the Radioland Murders that I think I've talked about? But if I haven't, I will in the future. It's one of my top favorite films. It's the most like a screwball comedy in the 90s that exemplifies or epitomizes the 1930s or 40s kind of template. It came out in '94. It totally bombed at the box office, but I love it. I think it's got great music in it. This movie, Danger on the Air, is kind of like it's pretty much the exact plot of the Radioland Murders. Only you have a different cast. I believe it's sorry, the Tin Man. Y'all know who I'm talking about. Jack, another Jack. I can't remember his last name. Oh. Anyway, I like him a lot. And he's wonderful in it. He's really the main character in it. Sorry, I'm forgetting my names today. You should totally watch it. It's free on YouTube. It's really entertaining. It's a good time, especially if you like radio stations too, because I think that's most of it. So, my favorite brunette. I enjoyed this. This was Bob Hope. I'll probably be watching more Bob Hope movies, here and there. Uh, it's a good kind of spy flick. I might watch that again. It's free on YouTube. Having a Wonderful Crime, don't really remember it. If I don't remember something, then it probably wasn't. It probably didn't suck, but it probably wasn't like fabulous either. There Goes My Girl, don't remember that. His Kind of Woman, okay. His Kind of Woman, the reason this annoyed me is because it's a noir film that also was classified as a comedy. Another big mistake. If you love noir films, watch it. It's not even that great of a noir film, okay? And yes, I may not talk about noir because I don't really enjoy it as much as I used to when I was younger. But I've seen tons of noir, so I know what high quality noir is, and this is not. It's a little bit quirky. If you're a huge Robert Mitchum fan, you should watch it because he's pretty much in the entire movie. It's a bizarre movie. I didn't get it. Trouble with Harry was a recommendation from one of our viewers, and I really appreciate her recommending this. This was a movie I hadn't seen since I was like, well, let's say it was about 30 years ago. I think it was 30 plus years ago was the last time I saw it. And I think I didn't really. I liked it okay back then, but I didn't go out of my way to watch it again. I really like it now. I think it's a movie that I'm gonna go out of my way to watch like once a year. I might watch it in October or November, along with maybe The Lady Vanishes or something like that, because it's just got a really cool vibe to it. Like even though it's a murder mystery and it's in a small town, it's got this kind of like the viewer that suggested to me that kind of like an unusual cast of characters who are just they kind of remind you of like these small town New England quirky characters that you see in like sitcoms and stuff. I mean, I'm gonna bring up Newhart because I like that show, the second Newhart show, where that took place in Vermont. It's got that kind of like quirky Vermont-y kind of thing going on. So yeah, you should totally watch that, and it's free on YouTube. And of course, I was on a Hitchcock vibe, so I watched a ton of Hitchcock. I rewatched The Man Who Knew Too Much, 1956, Jimmy Stewart, Doris Day, really fabulous. That's all I'm going to say. You need to watch it. I do need to see the original one with Peter Lorre because I haven't seen that one yet, and I'll probably do that in the future. I mentioned Rear Window. It's not my favorite Hitchcock, but it's definitely in my top, for sure it's in my top 10. For a long time, it was in my top 5 or top 3. I think I've become fans of other movies since then, but it's still one of my top favorites. Yeah, yeah. And another example of like really great camera work in a confined space. I mean, yes, he's looking out the window, and that's fabulous too. Um, but those are your two choices. You got shots going outside, and you got shots in his apartment, and that's it. You know, so it's almost like Hitchcock said, I'm gonna test myself and I'm going to make a movie entirely in like two spaces, and that's it. And I can't go anywhere else. And that's, you know, now to contrast that would be the opposite of that would be North by Northwest, where he says, I'm going to go all over the place. I'm going to go in the train. I'm going to go to the UN. I'm going to go to all these places, When you go to Mount Rushmore, right? So North by Northwest has become very beloved, and I think it's beloved for a lot of people. So of course I watched that again, and guess what? It's free on Tubi right now, so take advantage of it right now. And the copy is quite clear and really good quality copy. Vertigo is probably one of my all-time favorites. I love Vertigo. If you haven't seen Vertigo, or if you haven't seen it in a while, you must see it. Spoiler alert, I tend to zone out in the second half because it's hard for me to watch. The first half is more interesting to me. Second half has some themes in it that are a little bit triggery for me, that are become kind of hard to watch. So, but that's just a personal thing. But it's a amazing film, and I get into discussions all the time with people who don't get it, who think Psycho's better. You'll notice I don't like Psycho. I don't like The Birds because I consider Hitchcock to be two phases. Well, he really has three phases, but his 30s films in Britain and whatnot, and his Hollywood films in 1940 to 1959, and then you have his horror films from 1960 on, and they weren't all horror. He did do some other things besides that. I personally don't like Psycho. I've seen it once. I've seen it actually more than once, and I just don't need to see it. I don't need to see it again. I've seen The Birds a couple times. I don't need to see it again. It just doesn't. The aesthetics of what he was going for, it's like he became another person to me. So whereas the suspense aesthetics he has, they're always full of, like, Vertigo is full of beautiful colors, beautiful music. It's a love letter to San Francisco. And even if it wasn't, you get to see the fabulous, redwood forests, or the big redwood trees, and those. I mean, I've never been out there. That's a place I would love to go to. You get to see the different sites of San Francisco, and it's just shot so gorgeous, so beautiful. I'm not even talking about the costumes. I'm just talking about, and those are great too, but I'm just talking about the scenery, and then I haven't even brought up the acting, which is fabulous. So, and while I'm on it, let me just go on and on about this because it's another peeve I have. Grace Kelly is not the greatest Hitchcock blonde of all time. She's just a model who looked good on camera, who was a really nice person, who was very philanthropic, and became a beloved philanthropic person in real life. And she did a lot of really wonderful things for real people in real life. But as an actress, she doesn't come close to Kim Novak. She doesn't come close to, Eva Marie Saint. She doesn't come close to, she doesn't even come close to Doris Day. Doris Day, in my opinion, is a better blonde Hitchcock than Grace Kelly. Now, Grace Kelly is beautiful to look at, and she's moves for the camera quite exquisitely. That does not mean she's a great actress. That means she moves for the camera well. There's a difference. There's some people who can do both, move for the camera well and act, and there's some people who do one or the other. And unfortunately, in today's aesthetics, that people don't understand the difference between great acting and being, personable for the camera. They get mixed up with those two things a lot. So I just wanted to cover that. Now, did want to talk a little bit about some other Hitchcock ones. Torn Curtain. This is a movie I saw years ago that is actually pretty good. If you want to see a good spy flick that's like from the 60s, it's a Cold War era film, and it does have some really suspenseful moments in it. It's kind of a little more along the lines of, like, it's a little Bond-ish. Like, it's got that James Bond kind of feel to it, only it's a pairing of people with Julie Andrews and Paul Newman. So, I think it's worth watching. Topaz was also quite good. And sometimes I get these mixed up because they're both in the 60s and they're both kind of Cold War ones. I do remember Topaz being really, really good. I might have to come back and watch that again because I think that was the one that had more of the, it might have had something with Cuba in it. And I think that was Cold War era kind of spy film. Rebecca is one of my favorite Hitchcock films of all time. It's from 1940. I think it was the first Hollywood movie he made. And it's the David O. Selznick, stamp of approval. So it's got that kind of feel to it. And I don't think there's enough great things to say about Rebecca. I did provide a link on here that's an HD quality YouTube link. So getting this movie on YouTube is like amazing. It doesn't happen very often. So take advantage of it now. It'll probably be there for a while, but I don't know. You never know with YouTube. Joan Fontaine is like, this is her iconic character. And there are people who have made fun of her and the Miss Danvers character. There's a really funny David Mitchell and Robert Webb. They're British comedians. They did a parody of, if I can find the link, I'll put it on here. They did a parody of this actual film. So watch this film first, of course, because it's amazing. Laurence Olivier, of course. And George Sanders is in it. And there's a lot of other really great British actors in it, too. But once you watch it, watch the Mitchell and Webb parody of Rebecca, because it's pretty funny. Let me just skip over some other ones. I watched David and Goliath because I wanted to watch Orson Welles. This is like, if you're in the mood for a really campy film, but yes, you will get the occasional great Orson Welles scene. So when he's on camera, it's a real movie, but the rest of the time, it's kind of a joke. So, All of Me, another 1984, one of these like psychic kind of spirit possession kind of things. It's actually quite good. Greenwich Village, 1944. I think I'm going to make this one of my quote-unquote Christmas holiday movies because it just has kind of a, I don't know why it reminds me of the holidays. It just does. I love Carmen Miranda and I love Don Amici, and especially I think they made at least 2 or 3 films together. And I want to say that Vivian Blaine is in this one because sometimes I get her and Alice Faye mixed up. But I think this is a Vivian Blaine vehicle. And I think it's really great. I loved it. Music is fabulous. It's one of these historical, it's obviously fiction, but I think it takes place in the 20s. So it was made in 1944, but it's about the 20s, the roaring 20s. So it's got that kind of style of what you would imagine Greenwich Village to be like back then. I also watched Sneakers from 1992, and that's a movie I really like to watch every once in a while because it's still true today. It's all about the information. That's all I'll say. But you should watch it if you haven't seen it. It's a really nice ensemble thriller comedy. Probably the only movie I can think of with Sidney Poitier and James Earl Jones together. Even if it's not for the entire movie, but it's got a really great ensemble cast of Robert Redford and Dan Aykroyd, and David Strathairn is great in it. River Phoenix. I'm trying to remember. Mary, I get her last name. Is it Mary McConnell? She was from Dances with Wolves, and she's been in several John Sayles movies. I think that's her last name. And there's a bunch of other people in it, too. Okay, so I got through October, November, and I know if you fast forwarded to just the holiday portion, here we go. Now, I haven't watched all of these movies yet because some of these are ones that I just have planned on my calendar to watch. I'll try to watch them, but, I'll let you know which ones I've seen already. Some of the ones that are on here are in the 1930s to 1970s era. I've got Christmas in Connecticut with Barbara Stanwyck, Bishop's Wife with Cary Grant, Holiday with Cary Grant, Shop Around the Corner with Jimmy Stewart and Margaret Sullivan. That's an Ernst Lubitsch film. We've got another Jimmy Stewart film, but it's later. It's called Bell, Book, and Candle, and that's with Kim Novak and Jimmy Stewart. And then we have The Lemon Drop Kid with Bob Hope, Desk Set, which is a Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy comedy. And then We're No Angels with Humphrey Bogart, and that's a comedy. And of course, I did mention Greenwich Village, and of course, White Christmas is on there because it's probably one of my favorite, definitely one of my favorite musicals, probably one of my favorite films of all time. Yeah. And then Larceny Inc., which is kind of a Christmassy film or holiday film. Edward G. Robinson. So let me group together. I'll just quickly tell you in terms of mood or theme, the kind of like ex-con or criminal turned good sort of theme. If you want to do those movies together, I would suggest We're No Angels. That's a definite must. Larceny Inc. and also Lemon Drop Kid. Those are kind of like your ex-con or, some kind of racketeering or criminal activity being involved during Christmas, during the holidays. Then if you're in the mood for kind of like supernatural or spiritual kinds of themes, I would say The Bishop's Wife, definitely. I would say Bell, Book, and Candle for sure. I'd call that a supernatural comedy. And I'd say those two. Then if you want your, either screwball comedy or that's really about kind of somebody in a crazy situation and they've got to get themselves out of it and it's lots of fun. There's all sorts of like crazy things going on that are funny. Christmas in Connecticut it's become a favorite over the last 5 years. I had never seen it until 5 years ago, and I absolutely adore it. It's with Barbara Stanwyck, and she's a writer in it, so you should totally watch that. And Shop Around the Corner, another one I hadn't seen ever before until about 5 or 6 years ago, and that's a little more of a heartfelt comedy. It's got a wonderful cast of characters, though. So if you like ensemble pieces, and it's anybody who's worked in retail, if you've worked in retail in any point of your life, especially during the holidays, you should totally watch this movie because you'll get it. Desk Set also has that similar kind of like what they call now a romantic comedy, but I like this classified as more of an office comedy because there are themes in this about office politics and about technology. And this is from 1957. So I think some of these technological themes in this office comedy set during Christmas. And also, by the way, this is for all you librarians out there and or people who have done research, and that's something that I sometimes do as well. This is definitely a movie for you guys too. So, and then Greenwich Village is it's just a 1940s Fox musical that's set during the 20s, and I don't know why it feels Christmassy. It just does. So those are the ones I've either seen or probably am going to see. I've already seen Shop Around the Corner, Bell, Book, and Candle, Desk Set, We're No Angels, White Christmas, Greenwich Village, and Larceny Inc. I'm not sure if I'll probably get around to Christmas in Connecticut and Bishop's Wife. Yeah. So I hope to get around to those two. Now, if that's not your cup of tea and you prefer something a little more from the last 50 plus years, like something since 1970, I've got some interesting little mixtures of things that you can watch for the holidays. The first is a playlist I put together in the last year or two of my favorite Saturday Night Live Christmas holiday skits, and then the SCTV. I think it's called the Office Christmas Party or Office Staff Party or something like that. It's like an hour or 45-minute long holiday special like they used to do back in the day. Frosty the Snowman from 1969 with Jimmy Durante and Billy DeWolf is on there. Now, this is an unusual one that I try to watch. I don't watch it every year, but I watch it maybe every few years. It's the Nutcracker on Ice, which sounds really cheesy, but it's with Dorothy Hamill and Robin Cousins, and they were one of the best skaters like ever. And it's actually done really well. So I think Lauren Green's got a little bit of a scene in the beginning with a little girl telling the story of the Nutcracker and stuff. So I like it. I think it's actually a well done for the most part. There's a couple things I would have changed. Maybe the Arabian Dance is not my favorite because I think they added like synthesizers because it was the 80s. But other than that, I really liked it. Blackadder's Christmas Carol. If you like British comedy, you have to watch this because it's got like everybody and their brother who you associate with British comedy. Jim Broadbent, Miriam Margolyes, Rowan Atkinson, Hugh Laurie. There's probably a few more people, and I just can't. Oh, Robbie Coltrane. Rest in peace. And I think we lost him in the last couple of years. And it's only 45 minutes, and it's really fun. I think it's basically like a take on the Christmas Carol, Blackadder's Christmas Carol. I haven't seen it yet. I remember it being okay, kind of, you know, like if you had to rate it, probably be like 2.5 to 3 stars maybe. But it's that movie Trapped in Paradise with Nicolas Cage and John Lovitz and Dana Carvey. And it's kind of like a crime comedy kind of thing. I might check it out. It's free. It's free on YouTube. Or actually, it's free on the Tubi app. And I put the link in there. I really, again, another criminal kind of comedy thing during Christmas is The Ref with Dennis Leary. And I really like this movie. I think it's dark. It's not the kind of movie I watch all the time because it's a little more edgy, if you will. But Dennis Leary is in his prime in 1994, and some of his one-liners are really funny. Like there's a scene where one of the neighborhood Santas drops off a fruitcake, and the wife, he's holding, well, spoiler alert, he can kind of guess from the cover of the poster that he's holding this family hostage, basically. And the woman gets the fruitcake from the Santa, and he takes a piece of it, and he ends up spitting it out. It's like freaking suburbs, like he's just, it's just, yeah, I'm not doing it justice. But there's some really great one-liners in there. Dear God, 1996. I like this movie. I went on Letterboxd to see the reviews from other people, and geez Louise, people are just, I mean, if you can handle like sentimentality that comes with Christmas time or holiday time movies, I don't understand why that's out of style. I mean, it wasn't that over the top. This is a Gary Marshall film, okay? So I don't know if you remember Gary Marshall, but if you do, if you were a fan of like 70s television, you saw Gary Marshall. He was just behind the camera. Then in like the 90s, he kind of came a little bit more visible. He was in movies like Soap Dish, which is like one of my favorite movies of all time. And because he had been a director for a long time. And then, of course, he's in other movies like Never Been Kissed. He plays the newspaper like CEO or the manager, whatever, editor, newspaper editor. But in this particular, Dear God movie, it was a 1996 movie with Greg Kinnear. He was behind the camera. He was directing it. And it just felt like kind of like a little Miracle on 34th Street ish, only with ex-cons. And but I thought it was a really sweet movie. And Greg Kinnear, I really loved his character, and there's really good performances from Laurie Metcalf. I don't know if you've ever seen her. I mean, she's more well known on television, probably in the Roseanne show. Which I can take or leave that show. To be honest, I thought she was really great as Sheldon's mother on The Big Bang Theory, and she was also in like Desperately Seeking Susan. She kind of stole that movie. She played like the sister-in-law, I think. But she kind of steals the scene in whatever she's in. I thought she was great in this movie, and there's a lot of other people like Roscoe Lee Brown is in it. Tim Conway is great in it. And you would not believe like the reviews on Letterboxd were like just merciless, really horrible. Like, I mean, I can see like if a movie is kind of like a little bit annoying in its over sentimentality, but I didn't find this movie that overly sentimental. It maybe was in parts, towards the end or whatever, like you would expect. But a lot of Disney movies are like that all the time. It's a holiday movie. It's supposed to have some degree of warm heartedness. We don't all need to be like bashed over the head with cynicism 24/7. But if you're that kind of person, don't watch it. Sorry. Okay, so Deck the Halls, I haven't seen yet, but I do remember it being, I mean, I haven't seen it recently. I think I saw it a few years ago. I just saw that it was on YouTube for free, and I do remember it being kind of like over the top fun. I think it's a competition between two neighbors who can have the better light display. So it's Danny DeVito and Matthew Broderick. So, it's definitely over the top. Yeah. Now, speaking of, if you like more toned down comedy that's not really, it's really more dramedy than comedy, which is, in my opinion, how everyone does comedy now. They call things comedy on Netflix, and it's really not. It's a dramedy. It's a drama with a skosh of comedy. This Nothing Like the Holidays was a very good family dramedy with a really good cast. John Leguizamo, Deborah Messing, Luis Guzman, Alfred Molina. It's a Latino family, and it was very, very touching, and there were some funny moments in it. And of course, it's really awesome cast. And yes, I've succumbed to some of the not quite Hallmark fare, but I do like some of the Netflix or Hallmark-ish um, Christmas movies that are usually done with like slightly better budget and better acting than a typical Hallmark movie. I've seen the Hallmark movies. I tend not to go for those as much, but like I did like this one. And I do have a bunch of other Netflix movies that like I actually kind of enjoy, and they're a little bit of a guilty pleasure, and I know they're not great films, but I enjoy them at Christmas time. But this is one of them, and it's on YouTube. It's called Merry Little Christmas, and Little is spelled Liddle because that's the main character's last name. And I'm a Kelly Rowland fan of Destiny's Child, so I wanted to see her acting in this, and she was really great. And it's from 2019. Apparently, there's a whole series of them, so I might try to watch the sequel, and I think there's a third one too. Um, and there's, I think her mother is played by Deborah Morgan. Those of you who are soap opera people, you probably know her from All My Children. I think she was in All My Children in the 80s, and I don't know, I guess she was in it in the 90s, and maybe she's still on it. I don't know. She was on it when I was younger. So, and she was really good. She plays the mother in it, and I didn't really recognize some of the other people, but they were very good, very memorable, like kind of fun family members, but also a little annoying too because that's the nature of her family. in that movie. So, and she's like this tech genius who runs her own company, and so I always like movies with like female executive people who like maybe not executives, but like female entrepreneurs or self-employed people who are trying to have a good time at Christmas or trying to make something happen that's special at the holidays. And maybe it's with their family, or maybe it's with something else, like with The Office. Like I mentioned, the Desk Set is a really interesting movie. It's a female driven movie. Christmas in Connecticut is another great example of 1945 of a female driven comedy where she's clearly a writer, and the writing that she does in her job is very integral to the plot. So it's nice to see some of these comedies. Yes, they're romantic comedies, but they're not. While I enjoy the romantic comedy where the man and woman fall in love and we don't know what they do for a living, it's irrelevant. I do enjoy the ones where we find out kind of what these people do, and especially the female driven ones, you know, what parts of their jobs are kind of integral to the plot, you know. Shop Around the Corner. Those are certainly female characters. It's a predominantly male cast, but there are certainly, Margaret Sullivan is one of the workers in that movie, and that's a really interesting thing. Belle Book and Candle, she's another female entrepreneur. She runs her own. It's kind of like a gift shop of like archaeological antiquities. So, and of course, there's other characters in it that are authors and people of a shall we say, a Wiccan background or traditional witchcraft background. But they also have other jobs, And, but then you have the criminal, like We're No Angels. That's a criminal comedy, but it takes place in a shop. So there's a lot of interesting. And White Christmas, same thing. You have some entrepreneurs. The inn in Vermont is entrepreneurial, but and the ladies are two working women who are you know doing in show business, and of course the working men in show business, Bing and Danny and Vera Ellen and Rosemary. All these things play into the holidays as well as the other parts of the plot where other people's emotions and things are being considered. So I've gone on quite a bit. Oh, but I do want to leave you with one more thing. I have an extra link. So what we were just looking at was the 2024 movie links, which is up. Obviously I'll create a new document for 2025, but 2024 is the last, I don't know, probably 9 months. I think I started it in March. So that has everything since then. But then I created another document it says Holiday Music and Movies 2024 with links. And I have several really fun curated playlists that I personally made. So I've picked out every single song on here, and these are all on Spotify. So even if you don't have a Spotify account, it's free, But I think you can play this even in your browser without a Spotify account. But it's totally free if you want to get one. I think you just have to give them your email or something like that. But I have them placed into different categories. The big mix is like, I think it's almost like 2 hours of predominantly the traditional, songs that you usually hear quite a bit. But I also have a lot of other songs that I've enjoyed that I think, like I have some Latin salsa songs on there. I have some jazz songs on there. I have some rock and roll songs. I have some I think that's mostly the variety of probably, rock and roll, jazz, a little bit of classical, like the Nutcrackers on there. So those are, and a little bit of like a cappella, like the Medieval Babes is one group that does a little bit of music on there. So that's one mix. Another one is the disco, funk, or dance mix, which is anything from the 60s to 2000s. So that's like 40 years. It's a very short list. It's not very much in terms of, it's less than an hour, but it's got everything from like James Brown to TLC to I think I've got a Kelly Rowland song on there. I think I've got something by the Bird and the Bee, which is really interesting. I hadn't heard about them. Then I've got a jazz Christmas, and that's, for me, jazz is not smooth jazz. It's jazz from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, maybe 80s, maybe 90s. But a lot of the jazz people I tend to like are from the, really, a lot of them are from the 50s and 60s, maybe a little bit from the 70s. But so yeah, that for me, that's jazz. Then we have holiday Christmas music, new wave. So that's going to be like Eurythmics or X. Uh, so yes, X maybe isn't a new wave band, but it's like, alternative-y type stuff. There's Elvis Costello is on there. Um, X, and who else? There is Billy Squires on there. He's kind of like pop new wave ish sort of. Book of Love, which is kind of like a dance music, and it's like electronic synthesizer mid 80s type stuff. Sting is on there. So yeah, that kind of stuff. A lot of 80s, maybe a couple. I think I threw in the Ravionettes, which is from like 2009 or 2008, something like that. So there's a couple things that are more recent, but it's mostly 80s. Uh, I think I also have a Luscious Jackson on there too, and I love them. They're like one of my favorites. And then the last list is the holiday Christmas music reggae. And for me, I like reggae from the 60s and 70s, maybe early 80s. There's a couple things that are more recent, but they're mostly in the style of the era of like Bob Marley, Toots and the Maytals, Sugar Minott. Um, I can't remember his last name. Jacob Miller, I think. Joe Gibbs. A lot of these people, if you know like 60s and 70s reggae, you'll recognize a lot. And they're just, even if you don't know any reggae, the Mighty Diamonds, that's probably more of the 80s, like early 80s. They're like a doo-wop. But it's really, it's, if you like reggae, even if you don't like reggae, give it a try. You might like it. Okay, so that's most of the video, and I know I went over an hour. That's a long video. But if you want to keep liking and subscribing, please visit my YouTube, like and subscribe this video. I'll be doing more classic comedies and musicals in the future. If you're looking for screwball comedy musicals or any old Hollywood stuff, as well as 1980s to present movies, check out my Letterboxd account, and I'll put the links for all these. And you can always go to my link tree too, which is, I'll mention that later. Or you can follow me on Instagram at Cinematic Enthus. And happy holidays, whatever you celebrate, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, Christmas, winter solstice, or nothing at all. Or maybe you just celebrate with your family, or maybe you just chill out at home and just watch movies and have a good time. I hope that you have a wonderful holiday season, and thank you for watching, and I'll see you in 2025.